Morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you're at, ladies and gents. I am Current Isagami, your resident tinker and meta-rodder, and welcome back to class with another installment of my Robattle Studies 102 curriculum, where in this specialized playlist, you'll be getting a whole lot more in-depth analysis and explanations to a lot of the core mechanics that make Medarot and ultimately Medarot S tick, whether it ranging from ascending parts or leveling metals, or even just a little in-depth on what metals actually do, ranging to everything else in between. That's what this dedicated playlist is for, so that you can be the best meta-rodder that you want to be. With this particular tutorial, we're going to be taking a more in-depth look into a specialized program that only a handful of models are eligible for, and those that are eligible for it actually have access to a lot of very powerful or even potentially game-changing perks that could really turn the tide in your favor if executed correctly. But it is a little bit of a long haul in the long run, and a lot of questions have actually been asked on how exactly this behaves, what it does, how to do it, and so on. So I hope that by the end of this particular lesson, you'll be at least a little more informed on what exactly Tuneups are and how exactly to complete them and participate in earning those extra bonuses for the bots that qualify. So the first question ultimately what are Tuneups? Now, when this feature was first released back in late May 2022, back with the first rerun of the Ghost in the Shell collaboration, there was a little bit of a controversy behind it, but I will get to that in just a moment. Basically, what Tuneups allow you to do is use parts to a qualified eligible Medarot model that is capable of taking their stats to the next level in some extra aspects. This can take the form of extra stat bonuses in heat or cool or power, or even extra bonuses like extra damage on pierce, or even extra S ranks on certain terrains based on the leg you're using. Now, with the controversy, however, it made it to the point where it was very difficult to attain at first glance and really difficult to earn points to redeem for such. But within the first couple weeks of it going live, they were able to go back and kind of retweak that and make it a little bit easier to use, ranging from certain missions you had to complete for it, to how to complete the said missions, and everything else in between. But I will get to that in due time. Basically, models that are eligible for tune-up can earn TP, or tune-up points, and it's these particular points that you can redeem for these extra perks that are permanent additions to the part once activated. So that means that once you activate and unlock a certain bonus, you are able to keep it on that part permanently. There's no extra cost or requirement to doing so. Now, for the tune-up menu, it does have a couple of extra menus that are kind of difficult to properly navigate, and I'm hoping to help walk you through this and make it easier to understand. But basically, when you access a TP part menu for parts that are eligible, this is the first screen that's going to pop up, and it's relatively simple once you understand what it is. There are four simple elements here, essentially. Item number A over here on the far left is the missions list. This is basically the master list of everything that part is required to do, or how many times you're supposed to do it in order to earn tune-up points that they can use toward the upgrades. Item B is your tune-up point milestone rewards, and I will get onto this in just a minute as well. Basically, every 100 points you earn allows you to redeem for some extra rewards, ranging from ruby shards and power-up chips to even some bigger rewards later down the line. Item C, on the other hand, is to reset an upgrade. So if you decide at some point that the upgrade you're using just isn't working out for you, or if you need to retool them for whatever reason, you can use this button here and actually reset the tune-up for that particular point's used back to 0 to let you use them again. Now, a fair warning though, if you do choose to reset, it does cost you rubies to do so. So don't go resetting your parts willy-nilly unless you actually know for a fact that's what you're planning to do. Lastly, item D is to commit the selected upgrade to the part. So basically what it's going to let you do is if you have a certain number of points, it's going to let you redeem everything up to that particular amount for that specific upgrade, and then it'll allow you to commit all of them at once. So instead of having to do, say, level 1, then level 2, then level 3, you can skip right on to the level 3 upgrade right away as long as you have the parts for it. Now, for the missions list in particular, this is where it tends to throw a lot of people off, because especially for us Western fans, which have to rely on translations with Google Translate or DeepL or anything in between, this can get a little confusing. So to kind of walk you through this menu in particular, it's got a number of facets to it. Item A is to view ongoing and completed missions. So basically this lets you select all the missions that you're currently working on or have progress toward in regards to that particular part you're looking at. So if you have made any progress at all towards certain missions, whether it's use it a certain number of times, break a certain number of parts, complete a heat phase, or so on and so forth, those are the missions that are going to show up here. Item B is to include the unavailable missions. So these are ones that usually will come and go or open and close every once in a while based on if there's missions available or if there's events ongoing that can qualify and be eligible for it. So if you want kind of the whole list and see everything at once, that's the option for you to do so. Item C allows you to redeem rubies for completion. Now, they increase this much later on to where you can use wrenches, which you can purchase in the convenience store. I just didn't update my screenshot for that. So wrenches are usually okay depending on what it is, but for rubies to buy for completion, I'm going to very actively encourage you not ever consider doing. Not unless it's a specific mission that you absolutely know for a fact you cannot complete because it will not open again. I would recommend you save your rubies for other things like gacha pulls or something else of the like. Whereas with the tune-up, if it's able to be completed, you can do it at basically any time at your own pace. So there's really no reason to pool rubies into something like this that you can do on your own, especially if you merge it with your dailies. Now, where can you access the tune-up menu? That is the next question that a lot of people ask me. Now, on the bot selection and customization screen, as you'll see here, there is a specialized button here, and this screenshot also is slightly out of date because Metsubi also got it, but bear with me. That lets you access the the mission list for that particular set or the parts they're using for it, basically anytime you please. And it's a very nice little shortcut to access that missions list directly for the parts in question, or multiple parts, and see where your progress is at with the total amount of upgrade potential you have left. In addition, in the parts selection list on the far right, when you're scrolling through your parts, you can also find any parts that are eligible for tune-up, as denoted by this little wrench symbol down in the bottom corner next to the power-up chip slots. So it's very easy to figure out which ones are eligible for it and which ones are not based on these particular hints alone. Now, for the milestone screen, like I mentioned, every 100 points you earn allows you to collect on some extra rewards, such as extra ruby shards or power-up chips, or even down the line, as you see here, it'll actually start offering you some Cyplasium once you get into the higher tier. Now, a lot of these are things that you really don't have to worry about collecting right away, unless you're in absolute dire need of it. You're trying to collect every resource possible you can when it comes to tune-up. But there is one very special reward that at the very, very end of this, at 1,000 points, that you can redeem as a completion status to say that the part is fully tuned up, ready to go, and you have all upgrades unlocked for it. That specialized reward they offer you are specialized prototype skins in a gold, black, and crimson livery, as you see here by some popular examples. Metsubi and Rokusho, Peppercat, Cross Messiah, Beastmaster, Warbonnet, and Smiley Daughter, just some examples of many other models that were given the tune-up treatment. And a lot of these bonuses, like I said, can range in things from boosted armor to boosted success or power, or in certain types they also get pierce damage upon breaking apart, or an extra damage bonus when breaking, higher cooldown bonuses, terrain bonuses, or whatever, or even boost to their leg abilities as well that makes them even more potent than they were before. These are just a few of the major possibilities that you can get with tuning up, and a lot of these can be really, really big game changers in the right hands. Extra power, extra armor, means for extra survivability and extra oomph behind it, or even some of the extra damage plus conditions, or even reduction in requirements, can really change the game up to the point that you can actually play a very deceptive role against your enemy. So if you decide to go up against an enemy during Pure Sets PvP week with, say, I'll say, for instance, Cross Messiah as a perfect example, a fully tuned Cross Messiah, for instance, has access to 2 uses of full charge, and they don't drain his hit HP nearly as much, which means ultimately for you, that is one full Metaforce nuke and one full charge you can use for anything else right after that, and the enemy won't even know what hit them if they didn't do their research and check you when they're first selecting their enemies. So a lot of these, like I said, can be really, really big game changers, and it's going to be a rather big haul on how to actually participate in this. Now, in light of that, however, another really, really big question people ask with the tune-up treatment is what exactly are the kind of missions that are available? Because there are a lot of different types, and they explain very different things and send you to very different places. That is 100% true, which is why there was a little bit of a controversy behind it to begin with. But to explain the tune-up missions just briefly, and just to kind of give you a brief TLDR of what exactly those are. For certain things, a general idea is complete a certain number of Robattles using X part, use the part on certain terrains a certain number of times, use it a certain number of times in battle on certain terrains, use it without it being destroyed, use it and accrue a certain amount of damage cumulatively, which are usually those ones that are like 50,000 to 100,000 or whatever. Complete a successful heat-cool style cycle with the part. Use parts and evade successfully, which usually denotes to legs. A lot of people have found cheats to that one specifically, such as with Metaforces that guarantee evade. So with some you can kind of get away with that, with others you can't. You can also see variants of these things for super invasions and online PvP or Meta League, where you can participate in these and see ever so slight variations to these missions. But for the most part, this list right here is going to be the end-all be-all, and they all just kind of tend to cycle variants between this particular list with the missions that are available. Now, these missions, like I said, can be completed at basically any time. There is no time limit, there is no limit or limited time amount to how you complete them or how soon you complete them. You can only complete them, however, in specialized TP dungeons, which I will get to in just a moment and show you. You can also complete them in qualifying super invasions. If you press the go button on it, it'll actually direct you to a specific one, very likely. If not, you can always ask and just double check on it, but for the most part, it's kind of straightforward. For instance, Cross Messiah towards Cross Messiah super invasion, Metabe versus Metabes, Rokushos versus Rokushos, and so on and so forth. But for the ones that don't, they're usually a little more friendly in terms of which super invasions you can complete, so that you can still get that completion reward and still contribute toward that progress. You can also only complete them in online PvP and Meta League, like I said. Usually for this, though, this is why I see a lot of folks on online PvP and Exhibition League. They don't really tend to fight super seriously, so if you're planning to go in just for that, there's a good chance you probably will come across enemies that are really cheaply thrown together, like not even really serious teams. And they're usually people that throw together very weak teams on purpose, so people that are trying to farm for tune-up can do it very easily. And those people are the absolute champs for that, because if you help one person and pass it along, someone's going to very likely do that to you. So we all help each other out in that respect. Any ongoing events as well can participate toward and contribute toward any ongoing tune-ups as they are eligible and qualify. So if you are missing any missions that are perhaps limited time or closed during certain elements, events may or may not bring those events back up so that you can complete them sooner than later. Now, at the specialized dungeons, these used to be at one time they would cycle these through the day, so you'd have to pick a very specific day to farm this and just kind of pick and choose whether you did that or your dailies based on what you wanted. But after several months of that, they opened them all permanently so that anyone can access them at any time, which makes them so much easier to complete. Now, the forewarning I will give you is that the enemies that are in these particular dungeons, they're not impossibly difficult, I'm gonna say, like a super invasion might, but they are rather tanky teams. So you can't just go in with, say, 3 different tune-up eligible bots and expect to just sweep it and be done with it. The best recommendation I can give is to pick, say, one bot or maybe a mix of parts that you can put together feasibly, and then build a team around it with a healer or a shieler or something of the like, so that you can let the tune-up eligible parts do their thing and just make sure that they stay protected the whole time. Because, like I said, these are not difficult, but annoying, tough missions that you need to make sure you're built around and ready for, if you want to actually make sure that you walk out with a victory and not get your tin can handed to you. Now, for some extra assistance to this, for those that have been out of the loop or not been following you, or are relatively new to the Metarot News Network, there is a specialized playlist as well I have been releasing on the side as models receive the tune-up treatment that allow me to go back and regrade the model in question and kind of break down all the different upgrades they have. That is my regraded playlist, as you see here, where I take all the bots in question, break them down, re-explain exactly what they do, which upgrades that they're eligible for might be the better ones to invest in, as well as a new score relative to how good or how negligible their tune-up bonuses might be. For some, it might be a very, very noticeable bonus in just how useful they can be with those tune-up upgrades, and with others, you may not even notice a difference at all, and it might just be some added bonuses just for the sake of keeping them in the fight just a little longer, or an extra terrain bonus, or whatever the case may be. But that playlist is available to you at any time for all qualifying bots, and as more bots are added to the tune-up eligible list, so too will that playlist increase, so that I can regrade them again and give you just some recommendations on how to build them the best and most optimized way relative to how they are and how they behave. Now, just some closing thoughts on tune-up. Like I said, at first glance, it looks really difficult and really confusing, and it actually was at first glance. But once you understand what it is and all the different missions and just kind of the TLDR of the missions in general and what they entail, it's actually not as bad as you think. Now, a couple closing thoughts I want to give with tune-up in particular is it's going to be very grind heavy, so do not rush it. And I'm going to say that up front and stop you real quick. And if you have the expectation of going in and finishing it in, say, like a week, I guarantee you won't. You're going to be at that for quite a while. Whether it be farming the TP dungeons, the super invasions, events, PvP, or anything of the like, it's going to be a long haul. Some missions will take a while, like I said, so just keep at it when you're working on your dailies. Some missions are limited. They will come and go, open and close, but they will come back with events or as eligible. Missions themselves are relatively easy. Like I said, you can always go back and screen cap the missions list for the TLDR, just so you can kind of hold on to that at any given time if you need it. And some limited missions will indeed close after a certain time. This primarily gears toward a lot of the collab models that got tune-up treatment, such as the Ghost in the Shell models, the Omega Sisters collab, or Cyborg Kuro-chan, or whatever. Collab missions usually will very likely close, and at that point you probably can use rubies to purchase the missions that you perhaps weren't able to clear. But again, I would use that with very, very great caution, because I would double check and just make sure that there is no feasible way for you to complete that mission first before you go spending rubies on it. Choose your upgrades wisely. Now, this is another really important point I want to mention, is with the exception of the 3 Ghost in the Shell models that debuted the tune-up treatment, all models that are eligible for tune-up have an access of 1,000 points, a total per part. Now, that 1,000 points, you can divvy up however you please. You can put them all towards, say, level 1 or level 2 upgrades. You can do them toward 2 upgrades or 1 upgrade. It's completely up to you. But just letting you know that you only have those 1,000 points for upgrades. You can't redeem them for every single upgrade that's available to you. You have to pick and choose what upgrades you want, which is why I also contribute to the regraded playlist to give you suggestions and ideas on what to expect and which upgrades are usually better than others. Fast tracking is also very expensive. Like I said, and I will continue to say this, unless the missions are absolutely for a fact closed and you cannot complete them, do not spend rubies on completing TP missions, because it is just 100% not worth it. Now, like I said, there are some missions where it's worth it, such as, say, legs with evade a certain number of times, or a certain number of times in online PvP, and those missions are okay. If you feel like you want to fast track with those, do not use rubies. Instead, try to stockpile on the tune-up wrenches that you can purchase, up to 100 a day in the convenience store, or you can earn them relatively easily as well in ongoing events, whether they be ticket-based or milestone-based, and just kind of collect on a stockpile of those, so that if there are certain upgrades that you need sooner than later, you can use the tune-up wrenches and save on your rubies for that fast tracking instead of having to use your very premium and very resource heavy premium currency that you use toward your gacha pulls. Effort versus reward. Another big question I ask is it even worth it to tune up? And the answer I'm going to give you is, it ultimately depends. There are a lot of models where a lot of upgrades they get are absolute game changers, like 100%. Like, if it weren't for the tune-up bonuses, they would not be nearly as powerful or as worth it as they would be without them. But with others, probably not as much, maybe just a stat bonus or two, nothing really game-breaking or anything that's really worth going after. Nice to have, but not required kind of thing. Some upgrades are big game changers, like I said. Tuning up parts to max is not necessary, so if you feel that you need to upgrade to 1,000 points first and then divvy out your tune-up points, that's not required. If you get, say, 200 points for a right arm and you can redeem it towards bonuses, then go after it. You don't need to wait. You can redeem your tune-up points at any time. Lastly, one other really big piece of advice I'm going to give you is the parts do not have to be fully capped at 5 or 6 star to tune up. It just means you won't have the full access of whatever the highest damage output is until you fully cap the part. But you still can access those bonuses at any time, whether you get the part right away, like the moment you start the game, or if you don't get them until much later and decide to go back and revisit it just so you have the part on hand. But with all that being said, I do believe that covers basically just the TLDR for everything to do with tune-up. Like I said, it's relatively confusing at first glance, but then once you understand what exactly it is, how it works, and just a short TLDR list of the missions and just the variants of all those different kinds of missions, it's really not as difficult, and it'll give a lot of endgame or late game players something extra they can do with some of the parts that are eligible for tune-up when they run out of things to do on their dailies. Or if you're a newcomer and just starting out, this will be a really good way to add some extra perks to that particular model that's eligible, to give them a little extra oomph behind all of their skills and make every bonus count for what they can offer to you. But with all that being said, if you would like to know more, you can follow us below on Facebook at the Metarot News Network page or the Metabots Forever community on there. You can also join us on Discord in a link provided and in the comments below to keep an even closer ear to the ground on the action. That includes any links to further 102 videos, to my regular content, contests, fan art, streams, and so on. That's the first place you're going to see any news before it goes anywhere else. Lastly, you can also reach out to me personally on Twitter at Isagamikura. So if you have any questions or feedback or comments, or if you have something that you perhaps would like to see me visit or even look into for my Robattle Studies 102 curriculum, I would absolutely love to hear that. But with all that being said, I am going to officially dismiss class because that covers everything for this tutorial on Tuneups. And as always, I do appreciate you all for stopping by, just as you always do. And until next time, this is your host, Kura Isagami of the Metarot News Network, signing out.